let's talk about the nuts and bolts of Kemetic spirituality and why I feel it's important that we use it for our liberation and for our salvation. It's profound peace and blessings. This is Derric Rau Khu more. And I know it's been a minute since I've last made a video and everything for you. Those of you who've been following the channel for, since the beginning or so, you know how we roll. You know that basically, unless the ancestors approve it, we don't move, okay? And the reason why I'm saying that is because, there's been a lot of things that have happened, since the last video that we've posted. And we made videos, we got videos, we got responses and everything. We want to say something about it. But what happens is, it always seems, it never fails. Whenever we go ahead and we make videos like that, there's always some kind of technical issue, okay? And that's what I mean when I say the ancestors aren't approving of it. But there's always some kind of technical issue. It's either a problem uploading it, it's a problem going ahead and editing it, it's a problem going ahead and we have some issues with YouTube. It could be any of those things. It's always something that comes up when the ancestors and spirit guides are not approving of the video, okay? Now, find out there's a few reasons why this happens. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes, when we're going ahead and we upload the video and everything, and like I said, there's a problem or some other kind of technical issue, we'll go back and we'll do a reading. Okay, well, what's going on? Okay, and the reason why we do that is mainly because we know, if we were to approach things from a Western perspective, we know that, okay, it's an accident or some kind of obstacle occurs or whatever. Oh, okay, well, it's a coincidence or it's an accident. And we keep going. We keep trying to go ahead and do it, okay? But when we look at it from our ancestral perspective, we know that there's no such thing as accidents. We know that there's no such thing as a coincidence. Things happen for a reason. And, like I said, typically what happens, whenever we go ahead and we upload a video and there's problems, there's all these technical issues that occur, we'll go ahead and we'll pull we'll do a reading, and after we do a reading, sure enough, that's what it is. Ancestors are like, we're not backing that, okay? And we found out basically, typically, the reason why the ancestors aren't backing it, ancestors and spirit guides, the reason why they're not backing it, they're not supporting what it is that we're doing, is because, in one sense, they don't want certain information to fall into the wrong hands, okay? And that's not to say that there's evil people and all that kind of stuff. It's just that they don't want certain information to basically be misused by, individuals who aren't ready, individuals who have, they're spiritually immature, okay? They're culturally immature. So sometimes ancestors, they go ahead and they pull back. They're like, no, we don't want to support that. We don't want to talk about that. Okay, we don't want you putting that out there. And that's their way of doing it. Another reason why they do that is because, if the information we're putting out there, if the audience that the information is for is not there, they don't want that information put out there as well. Okay, there's another reason why, but I can't think of what it is. But those seem to be the main two reasons that always seem to come up. Every time we go in here, we put up a video or so, and it's basically, like I said, some kind of technical issue. That's what it is. Okay, they're like, oh no, we're not supporting that. Okay, now the reason why I'm sharing that with you, the reason why I'm telling you that, is because it's going to segue into what we're talking about for this video. All right. Because it's been brought to my attention that there's a lot of people who really don't understand what Kemetic spirituality is. If you go ahead and you ask a lot of people what Kemetic spirituality is, they'll tell you, oh, well, it's meditation. It's meditating, it's praying, it's working with the gods and goddesses. It's chanting, it is. They'll tell you all these different things, and that's not Kemetic spirituality. Okay, that's not Kemetic spirituality. Those are spiritual practices that people who practice Kemetic spirituality implement in their lives. And not all of those, but those are different practices that people use, but that's not Kemetic spirituality. Okay? And to understand what Kemetic spirituality is, like I said, we want to go ahead, I want to do a nuts and bolts, straight bare bones of what it is. Okay? And in order to do that, I want to do a compare and contrast, just a little simple compare and contrast with Western philosophy or Western spirituality, because this is what most of us are used to. Okay. Now, cat's already out the bag, but if you went ahead and you were to, if you went ahead and you looked up, put in a Word document, typed in the word spirituality, and you looked at a thesaurus and you looked at what's the synonyms for spirituality, one of the words that comes up is philosophy, right? Now, what is philosophy? Philosophy basically is the approach that an individual takes in regards to how they see themselves, how do they see others, how do they see their connection or their connection to nature, their connection to the universe, the connection to anything and everything around them. How do they view this? Okay. And when we do a compare and contrast with Western spirituality or Western philosophy and Kemetic philosophy, all right, we found that basically Western philosophy is kind of based upon the understanding, and this is my opinion, all right. This is pretty much how I was able to look at the differences between the two and what made me embrace Kemetic spirituality. But when you look at, like I said, you look at Western philosophy, for the most part, Western philosophy, it kind of begins with the idea that nature is cruel, okay? Nature is cruel. There's, and there's a lot of authors that have written about this, a lot of individuals, a lot of philosophers from all different perspectives that have written about this. But for the most part, like I said, that's how they look at it. They look at it from the perspective that nature is cruel, okay? Nature is harsh, it's like it's winter time. It's harsh. It's harsh, and so things are looked upon as being everything that exists from a Western perspective, from what I gather, is looked upon as an adversary. Okay, it's right. It can be a polar opposite or any of that, but it's an adversary. It's against you. All right. So because it's against you, because it's an adversary, because it's an enemy, it's an opponent, you got to conquer it. Okay. You got to conquer it. You got to find a way to conquer it. You got to find a way to defeat it. You got to find a way to control it. Okay. This is how I view, for the most part, like I said, this is how I view Western philosophy. Okay. And when I look at it from that perspective, and you look at it and you kind of see Western philosophy, and you look at Western history, and you see how they approach things, and how they approach dealing with others and everything, and how they look at things from that perspective. It only makes sense that from their religious perspective, they see that there was this supreme being, or there was this deity, or this God, or this superior force, whom we all know, or whom we all call God. They call God. Okay. And this supreme force, this supreme entity or deity or whatever, it is really the supreme being or supreme deity from this perspective, because it conquered them. Okay. And how did it conquer them? It conquered them by basically it controls them. Therefore, they mimic this supreme being, which is to control others or control everything else around them. Okay? Now, from this understanding, it's like it makes sense that there was this supreme being, there was this deity, and this deity gave them things, but somehow the deity, there was this big disconnect. Now it was a curse, or they sinned, or they did something, and as a result they fell out of their deity, or they fell out of their God's grace. Okay. Now again, like I said, I'm looking at it. We're talking about nuts and bolts. Okay. I'm not, and I'm doing a generalization of all Western philosophy. Okay. I know there's a few pockets here and there that don't really see things that way, but in general, this is Western thought. So because of them having this relationship with this divinity, this deity, in which this divinity or this deity conquered them, and in order for them to get back in this deity or God's grace, they have to go ahead and do XYZ. They got to live or XYZ. Well, from that perspective, you can see how everything else falls in line. When they deal with others, they got to live XYZ, because this is the only way in which you would go ahead and you would benefit from them. Okay? In order for them to deal with their women. Okay? Well, the woman has to go ahead, she got to do XYZ in order for them to go ahead and benefit. All right? And benefit from the progress or anything from the man. Okay? From the Western man. Nature is looked upon that same way. We got to conquer it. Okay, we got to do it. We gotta control it. All right, that's how I view Western philosophy. Okay, it is like I said, it's a survival. It's based upon the human experience of how everything was against them. Okay, now Kemetic spirituality or Kemetic philosophy, completely different. And the reason why Kemetic philosophy is different is because you have to remember, Kemetic philosophy or Kemetic, the whole tradition, for the most part, it begins from the inundation of the Nile River. The Nile River, it annually flooded. So just imagine this. The Nile River floods. It makes the surrounding lands fertile. It basically goes ahead and it produces all these different, so you got all these different plants and everything that is growing. And because of all this plant growth, now you got all this wild game that is being attracted to the plants, or being attracted to the all the different foliage and everything, because of the inundation of the Nile. All right. So from the Kemetic perspective, they're looking at it as nature provides me everything. Nature, God, the divinities, the spirits, whatever you want to call it, provides me with everything. Okay? The only reason why you may not be able to take advantage of something that the Nile or nature provides is because you don't have the skills to actually use it, to actually do it. Okay? But it doesn't stop the fact that nature continues to provide. Okay? That's a different perspective. All right? That's a totally different outlook on nature. Totally different outlook on nature. Okay? And like I said, I'm not doing a compare and contrast to ridicule or any of that. I'm just saying this is the nuts and bolts of, Western philosophy and Kemetic philosophy. All right. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, Western philosophy, if they're going ahead and they're approaching things from an adversary perspective, okay, everything, and it's from that, like I said, it's from that human experience. It's from a lower understanding of the human experience, which is based upon survival. We're doing this because we got to survive. So I got to conquer them. okay, versus looking at the Kemetic and, for that matter, all other, traditional African philosophy, that same, which is very similar, if not the same, that looks upon nature as basically being, it provides for you. Nature provides for you. The divine provides for you. The divinities, the spirits, and everybody, they provide for you, okay? But it's because of you being whatever, you being ignorant, you're not living a particular, you're not living in balance, you're being abusive in regards to the environment or whatever the case may be. It's because of you going ahead and having your shortcomings that you fall out of alignment. Not that you're cursed, it's just that you fall out of alignment and you're not able to take advantage of that. Like I said, different philosophy, different approach, different way of looking at things. Okay, now, so when we go ahead and we look at it from that perspective, the divine or God in the Western mindset is someone who is over you, whom you have to appeal to in order to be saved. Okay, so there's this conflict that exists, and you're basically doing this out of fear. Okay, you're basically dealing with God out of fear of going to hell, out of fear of being, like I said, being damned, being cursed, being, ending up like a certain way. You're doing things out of fear. Okay, whereas on the Kemetic perspective, okay, from the Kemetic way of looking at things, you're doing things out of love. You're out of alignment, and the reason why you're out of alignment is because you don't understand the love that the divine provides. You don't understand that the divine gives you all these things. You just have to go ahead and you have to humble yourself. You got to do things from a different perspective. The divine is going to give you this because the divine is always, it does this. Okay, the divine, the divinities, the spirits, or the ancestors, whatever you want to call them, they give you these things. Okay, they give you your blessings. They give you everything. Okay, you just have to go ahead. You have to come to them, and you have to live a certain way. You got to do things a certain way. Okay, in order to maintain that. So that's doing things out of love. All right. Now again, I'm not trying to go ahead and blow up and ridicule or any of that kind of stuff. I'm just giving you nuts and bolts. Okay. Excuse me. Now, so why do I think Kemetic spirituality is so needed? Well, the reason why in Kemetic spirituality is so needed is because when Europeans went ahead and they enslaved our African ancestors and brought them over here, okay, and they enslaved the indigenous people that were here and suppressed them and all that, they basically influenced everybody they came in contact with. They influenced us with this Western philosophy. So, and this is how they approach things, okay? So, every time the Westerner, they went ahead and they came across something that was different, they feel like, we got to conquer it because it's inferior. We got to conquer it, all right? So, when they enslaved our ancestors, okay, like I said, indigenous as well as our African ancestors, and brought them to this country, brought them to this, to this region and what have you. We basically became influenced by this philosophy through the Kemetic myth. And I'm not going to talk about how the Kemetic myth is just that it's a myth, how it's incorrect, and how technically there is no H sound in the Hebrew language. It should have been Kemetic instead of Kemetic, but I'm not going to talk about that, okay? Because that would take us away from the purpose of the point of this video. The fact of the matter is that it doesn't matter if you believe in the myth or not. Other people who you have encountered, other people who raised you, other people who have some kind of influence on you, have all influenced you with this myth. Even though you might not agree with it consciously, subconsciously, you have been influenced by this myth to the point that you think that, hey, for whatever reason, you do believe that you're inferior. You can say that you don't believe it, but you believe it. Okay? You have some kind of inferiority complex. Okay? We all have some kind of inferiority complex because this was imposed upon us. Okay? Now, it was not, they might not have said, the reason why the reason why you can't advance is because you are a descendant of Ham. They might not have said that. Okay? But they did say something to the extent of you can't advance because you the color of your skin, because of where you came from, because of your background, which all basically ties into, in this society, as being, a descendant of Ham, as being a cursed people, as being a conquered individual, as being a conquered race, ethnic group, or whatever the case may be. Okay? So you've been influenced by it. All right? And that's the thing we have to understand. All right? The reason why I push the whole thing about Kemetic spirituality and why I think and why I believe it will help us is because of this Kemetic myth. Basically what it has done is destroyed all of our archetypes, all of our models. So now we're starting to see, here it is, we're starting to see, our relationships aren't working. And you got people actually saying, well, that's because, we was cursed. The man and woman can't get together because of this. Every time we're pointing to, well, it's because of this, it's because of that, it all basically ties into the fact that everything in which we've dealt with has been destroyed. Okay? And understand, it's not that our cultural practices, our cultural beliefs and everything, it's not that they're not there, it's that they're deteriorating. And the elders who, the story keepers, they are dying off. And as they die off, and our stories and everything and all these things are basically continue to deteriorate, the morals within our community and within our society, it keeps deteriorating, it keeps going away, it's disappearing. Again, all because we don't have our models, we don't have our archetypes, we don't have any of that. In other words, we don't have our philosophy. Our philosophy is based off of someone else's philosophy. Okay? It's been said before, the Bible was meant to help us, or our ancestors used the Bible to help us to survive the physical aspects of slavery. We got that. But now it has become obsolete. Now it's time for us to go ahead and put it up and say, close that book, write that chapter, and close the book and be like, okay, that's it. And write a new chapter, write a new book. All right? And the way in which I believe that can be done is through Kemetic spirituality. Because in Kemetic spirituality, the Kemetic philosophy, we can basically go back and we can now pick up our own philosophy. Pick up our own philosophy, which is based upon the understanding that we are divine beings. When you understand what that really means to say that we are divine beings, okay, understand this. The divine, The Supreme Being is my first ancestor. That right there changes a whole lot in regards to, being made in the image of the divine. That changes the whole that changes the whole thing. Okay? Because if I said my ancestor, my first ancestor is the divine, what does that set me up to be? Okay? That's why Kemetic spirituality is important. Because once I go ahead and I start saying, well, my ancestor is the divine, and anything that basically occurs that keeps me out of alignment with the divine, it is because I am not being divine. I'm having problems with my wife. It's not because my wife is cursed. It's not because my wife is sin. It's not because we got to pray to God in order for us to be saved so we can go ahead and have a happy marriage. No, the reason why I'm having problems with my wife is because I need to align myself with my divinity so I can figure out, so I can be told, the divine, the ancestors, the spirit guides can tell me how to handle myself accordingly in order for me to go ahead and get blessings. How she needs to handle herself accordingly, according to nature, or according to the divine, or according to our first ancestor. That's what we have to do. Once we go in and do that, then we will have our peace, we will have our blessings, we will have whatever it is that's going to occur. Totally different perspective from being cursed and sinned. So when you approach philosophy or approach Kemetic spirituality from this philosophical perspective, we don't meditate because we're trying to go ahead and for the most part align, unify ourselves with the one consciousness. Not from a shamanic perspective. No, I'm trying to meditate to put myself back in alignment because I've fallen out of alignment. When we go ahead and we do readings, we're not doing readings just to go ahead and foretell the future. We're not doing readings to see what's going to happen in the future life or what's going to happen to this person and that person and all that kind of stuff. We're not fortune telling. The reason why we do a reading is so that we can go ahead and we can understand what is the ancestors, what is their will, how do we go ahead and put ourselves in alignment because we're having these issues. So what is the correct way? What is the righteous way to do things in order to bring peace and harmony and balance back into the situation in order to live a life of Ma'at? We're looking at things and we're trying to do things from a balanced perspective. Not because we're trying to conquer anything. Not because I'm trying to conquer this individual or I'm trying to conquer a person or any of that. That's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because we're trying to go ahead and get back into alignment. And that's why we need the Kemetic spirituality. Okay? We need the Kemetic spirituality, the Kemetic philosophy. And understand, when I'm saying we need Kemetic spirituality or Kemetic philosophy, I'm not saying, go back and adopt what the Kemetic people did and just take it wholeheartedly. Because, like I said, those of you who follow my channel, you know that that's not what we even advocate. Okay, we don't advocate that because what the Kemetic people did thousands and thousands of years ago is not going to be effective right now. Completely different perspective, completely different dynamics that are going on. Our ancestors on the Nile never had to deal with racism, never had to deal with this nonsense we're dealing with. Okay, but the concepts, the principles, they still matter. The concepts and principles that they use in order to build their society, in order to make, in order like I said, in order for them to go ahead and put their stamp on the world that has lasted for thousands of years, all of that is still relevant today. We can still use it today. And they know we can. This is the reason why they won't tell people, hey, guess what? The Kemetic people are this. The Kemetic people are black and brown people of African descent. That's the reason why they won't tell us. Okay? So I understand. The reason why I advocate, the reason why I push that we need it is because we need our archetypes. We need our own models. We need our own philosophy. We need our philosophical way of doing things. We need to connect back to the divine by thinking and approaching things from a divine perspective. We need to see ourselves as a divine being. That's our perspective. That's our way of life. That's our philosophy. That's how we do things. If you got any questions, comments, or suggestions, feel free to drop me a line. Until next time, hopefully that makes sense. Okay? But until next time, have to poo. Peace.
No pretending.